Now for side 2, we're going to first of all look immediately at some direct variation questions. And it asks us to write a direct variation question and then solve. So from the previous page, direct variation is y equals kx. And notice it gives us a y and it gives us an x, so we can just simply plug these numbers into this formula. And if I want to solve for k, just divide both sides by 2. And k equals 15 over 2, or if you prefer, as a decimal, 7.5. So the equation is y equals 7.5x. Now it asks us to find y when x equals 8, so what we do is we just substitute in 8 into this formula. So 7.5 times 8, and then work out what the answer is. So in this case it's going to be 60. Now if the question didn't ask us for the formula, and it just asked us to find the value of y, sometimes we do these questions in a different way, by proportions. So I pick which way around I want to do my x and y. So for the first one it says x is 2 and it says y is 15. And then for the second one it says x is 8, and then I've got to figure out what y is. And there's a couple of ways we can solve these equations as well. We can try and cross multiply like we did in the other questions, or we can just look and see what the pattern is here. Notice for this question we just times in by 4. So if I did the same on the bottom, that would actually tell me that this answer is 60. Now if I was to try cross multiplying on this one, I would get 2 times the question mark equals 8 times 15, which is 120, and then I can divide both sides by 2, which once again also gives me 60 as an answer. So there's a few different ways that you can do this little question. 16. Once again, we're going to write y equals kx to begin with, as it asks for the formula. I'm going to substitute in the 2 numbers, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 9 to find out what k is. So negative 6 over 9 is the same as negative 2/3. So I can say that y equals negative 2/3 of x. Now this time it asks us to find x when y equals negative 3. So if I plug in negative 3 for y, then I can start solving this equation. So instead of timesing by negative 2/3, I can divide by negative 2/3 to find out what x is. And then if we use our calculator for this, we should find out that it's 9 over 2 or 4.5. So a couple of different ways you could write that answer. Once again, if it just asked us to find the value of x for this question, I could set up a proportion again. So x was 9, y was negative 6. This x I don't know, but I know this y is negative 3. And we've got a couple of options. If you can see the pattern here, can you see this is divide by 2? Therefore it must be the same on the top number as well. And luckily for us, 9 divided by 2 is 4.5, and that was the answer we got using the other method as well. So if I'm just trying to find a value, I much prefer to do this question by proportions. If it wasn't obvious what the number was, I could once again do cross multiplication. 9 times negative 3 is negative 27. We'll cross multiply here, we've got negative 6 times question mark, and then divide both sides by negative 6. And the 2 negatives give me a positive, and 27 over 6 is both in the 3 times table, so once again it would be 9 over 2. So you have a few different options for how you can solve that type of question. Let's move on to inversely. This one just asks us to solve. Inversely is probably the easier one. It's just xy equals k. You just times the 2 numbers together. So 4 times 1 is 4. And every answer must always equal 4. So when we find x when y is 12, that tells me x times 12 must equal 4. And then to solve, just divide both sides by 12. So 4 over 12 or 1 over 3. Same for this one, just times the 2 numbers together straight away. Negative 1 times negative 3 is 3. And then we've got to find y when x is negative 9, so substitute in. And then divide both sides by negative 9. Or negative 0.3 repeating if you're using a decimal. Now to find if something is direct or inverse, really we just need to know the connection between them. Inverse is the one where you times the 2 together, and you always get the same answer. So sometimes that's the easiest one to find out. 1 times 30 is 30, 2 times 15 is 30, 5 times 6 is 30, and 6 times 5 is 30. So this one's definitely inverse. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12, 3 times negative 9 is negative 27, and straight away you can see this one's not inverse. The reason this one is direct, though, is also because you are multiplied by the same number each time. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6, 3 times negative 3 is negative 9, and in fact all of these are times by negative 3. The other connection you can check for these as well, for inverse, as one variable increases in value, you can see that the other value decreases in value. And for this one here, as x increases, notice that the y values are also increasing as well, 6, the 9, the 12 and the 15. So that's another clue this was a direct question. For this one, negative 4 times negative 2 is 8, negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. Well, it's definitely not inverse, so for this question, it's direct. And the rule is times by 1/2, or if you prefer, just divide by 2. Negative 5 times 8 is negative 40. This is also negative 40. And in fact, if you check, these are all negative 40. So this would be an example of an inverse question. As when you multiply the two numbers together, you get the same total. Now, we said that xy equals a number was inverse, so we can write that one straight away. This is the same as y equals 1/10 times x, so this is y equals kx. So this one is direct. This one doesn't look like any of those two things, but if I multiply both sides by x, then I get y equals negative 3x, so it's y equals kx again here, so this is also direct. And I don't have one like this either. If I multiply both sides by x, I get xy equals 7, so that would be inverse again. And that concludes the pretest for Chapter 5. Key formulas for this section, just to make sure you need to know exactly what you need to know. You do need to know the point-slope formula. You do need to know definitions, so you need to make sure that you know what slope-intercept form is, i.e. y equals mx plus b, like this. And standard form, where you have x and y on the same side. If we scroll down here, parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular slope, you're going to flip the fraction and then change the sign. Knowing that direct variation graphs have straight lines and they go through 0, 0. And on the second side, knowing that the equation for direct variation is y equals kx, and knowing for inverse variation it's xy equals k, and also knowing how to check from a table which type of variation it is as well.